Shavua Tov v'Mivarach. Mishnah Yomi is in the second chapter of Kiddushin, second Mishnah. Yesterday we talked about a woman accepting Kiddushin with cheap dates. They went on some cheap dates, and then the man handed her, when they decided to get married, the man handed her some cheap dates, talked about how maybe they could add up, or if not, how one of them had to be worth a sheva pruta. Anyway, she knows she's getting a good date that's worth a sheva pruta, that's why it worked. But what about if there's some mistake about the item she received? Now that's Mishnah Beit. Hidkadshi li because ze shel yayin. The man says to the woman, they're at a nice restaurant, and he buys a cup of wine for himself, and then he says, would you become married to me with this cup of wine? And he goes to hand it to her, v'nimsa shel dvash. And it turns out this is actually a cup of dvash, of honey. Shel dvash, he says, I'll marry you with this cup of honey. V'nimsa shel yain. It turns out it's wine instead. Or b'dinar ze shel kesef. I will give you this dinar coin made of silver. Nimsa shel zahav. It's actually made of gold. Shel zahav. He tells her the Kiddushin will be through this golden coin. V'nimsa shel kesef. And it's silver. Or he says, al menat sheni asher. On condition, I am rich. V'nimsa oni. And he's not rich. Oni, on condition that I'm poor. V'nimsa asher. And he actually has a lot of assets. Maybe it's Bitcoin. Eina mit kudeshet. In all of these cases, there's a mistake. And they are not married. And the Gemara points out, even in the case where she thought she was going to get silver and she got gold, which is much more valuable, assuming they're about the same size, still it's not mikadeshet because her mindset was on getting a silver coin, not a gold one. And of course, the same with the other materials and the same with the other circumstances. Some people don't want to live a billionaire lifestyle, and some people do. Rabbi Shimon disagrees. In one case, he says, Im hito l'shevach. If he tricks her, but it's to her benefit, it's something that's more valuable, the gold coin, mikudeshet. That actually does work because he says a woman is always happy to receive something more than she thought she was getting. It's interesting, one of the reasons, the minhag, the custom now, is that under the chuppah, the man gives the wife a very plain ring without any jewels and diamonds, is the general custom, because we don't want the woman thinking, oh, wow, that's a diamond ring and it's worth $10,000, and turns out it's cubic zirconia, it's something else. It's not worth $10,000, so she was thinking that she was getting Kiddushin with something bigger, and it's not something bigger. So we don't have any jewels and diamonds in the actual ring. Now, the engagement ring, that's something else. You can, Baruch Hashem, do whatever you want. The Mishnah Gimel continues the theme. Al menot sheni Cohen. The man says, let's get married on Kiddushin, I'm a Cohen. V'nimsa Levi. He's not a Cohen, but he's a Levi. Or Levi nimsa Cohen, vice versa. Notin v'nimsa mamzer. He says he's a Nasin, one of the Givonim that can't marry into the normal arena of Jewish people, but certain people they can marry, like a mamzer. Turns out he really was a mamzer, not a natin, not a givoni, or mamzer nimsa natin, or vice versa. He says ben ir, he lives in a big city. Nimsa ben krach, he actually lives in a small town. Sorry, I've reversed that. Actually, the krach is the big one. The ir is the regular-sized city. A krach is a big metropolis. Or he says ben krach, I live in the big city. Nimsa ben ir, he lives in a town. Or he says, Almanot shebeti krov lemerchatz, on condition my house is near the bathhouse, it'll be convenient. Nimsa rachok, and it's actually kind of far from there. Rachok v'nimsa karov, or vice versa. Or he says, Almanot sheyesh li bat, on condition I have a daughter, a daughter that's old enough to help around the house, do some cooking, some dishes. O shivcha gadelet, or I have a shivcha who, she can do hair, she can help out, she can do your hair. Ve'ein lo, he doesn't have one of these helpers. Or al menat she'ein lo, he says, I don't have anyone around the house. V'yesh lo, and it turns out he does have help around the house. Or al menat she'ein li bonim, v'yesh lo, he says, on condition he doesn't have children, but he does. Al menat she'yesh lo, ve'ein lo, or he turns out the vice versa. Bekulam, in all of these situations, afal pisha amra, even though she says, bilibi haya lehit kadesh lo, afal piken, she says, in my heart, I was really willing to get married, even if the condition wasn't true. Eina mikudeshet. They're not really married because he's stipulating a condition at the time of the marriage, and it's just not true. Ken he shehitato, and also if she misleads him. For example, she says she's a bas kohen or bas Levi, and it turns out vice versa. There's an interesting case in the Gemara. The Gemara says they didn't mention the Mishnah al menashni tzodik. If a man says, I'm a righteous man, let's get married on condition I'm a righteous man, because anyone can become a righteous man, even someone who's really doing things wrong in his life, but he can turn it around just by being Mahaher B'tshuva, just by starting down the path of tshuva, the path of return to the right way, to Torah and mitzvot, he can become a tzaddik immediately. It's such an inspirational thing that really we can do a lot of bad things, and we do. Okay, I'm speaking for myself, but you can turn it around immediately. So if he says Almanat Shani Tzaddik, even though we don't know he's a tzaddik, he can turn his life around and be a tzaddik, and that would be a valid Kiddushin. Shar Kochachem, Shavua Tov.